So the next part of this training is the certification process. So essentially, this is where the coordination with you data coordinators and the SELPA occurs, and all of the back and forth communications normally happen. And so the certification process occurs when all of your data um, are submitted to CalPads. So assuming you've already posted your records to CalPads, so you have your LEA submission process here, and assuming all 6 files are now in the CalPads ODS, you believe all of the records have been posted to CalPads, then you proceed to look at to go through the certification process. So part of the certification process is looking at certification errors and any anomalies. So anomalies are your overlapping enrollments, any duplicate SSIDs that you might have inadvertently created, or any SSIDs that you might have hijacked. So all of these process require coordination with um, other districts. Okay, then assuming all of that errors, certification errors, and all of the discrepancies with anomalies have been resolved, then we now go to report review. And so once you've affirmed that all of the reports are correct, then you then approve your version of the reports, which will then trigger a notification that will be sent to you and your SELPA, saying that your data was LEA approved and ready for SELPA review. So SELPAs will then on their end be able to look at your data. They look at the relevant reports that they need to review, and if they affirm it, then they click on SELPA approve. By clicking on SELPA approve, 2 approvals means certification. Okay, so once your SELPA approves, then you're officially certified. Now let's say your SELPA would look at your reports and see any discrepancies, then SELPA should contact you directly and indicate the discrepancies. That way you can make the necessary corrections and go through the process all over again. So this is just a high level description of the certification process. So I'll now go into demo mode to be that way we can discuss the actual details of the process. Okay, so again, what are the criterias to be able to certify? There should be 0 certification, fatal certification errors. Your anomaly rate should be 2% or less. Okay, your anomaly, which comprises the CCE and your mids, and then you should have reviewed all aggregate reports. Okay, these 3. Once you've met all 3, then you would be able, CalPAS will give you the ability to click on the LEA Approved button, and that would be the same for your SELPA. Okay, so let's move to the demo. Okay, so we're now on the test SELPA test mode. So let me just switch to our training organization. Okay. Okay, so now let's do the certification process. So to be able to go through the certification process, you need to have the roles. So you need to have the data certifier role. You need to have the Fall-1 reports role. That way you would be able to look at the interface, work on the interface, and also review reports. So we click on certification status. And this is what I see. So I have here Fall-1. So if we're in Fall-1, you only have 1 this year. In Fall-2, you'll have 2. In end of year, you'll have all 6 submissions. Okay. So if you're trying to follow along with production right now, chances are you won't see this. Okay. Because the certification will only be activated on census day. Okay, so once census day hits, which is October 6th, your snapshot revisions will be activated, and then that's when you start seeing these certification errors. seeing anomalies and seeing no actual anomalies. You could see that right now, but certification errors, and also be able to view reports. If you try to view reports right now, you would not be able to do that. Okay, so this is the LEA approval section. So we go into Fall-1 by clicking on this. Okay, so this is your certification details section. So you have here the summary of this certification page. You have a summary of the current snapshot that this page is showing. So my revision status is revised uncertified. And so this is the most recent snapshot that was provided to me by CalPads based on the changes I've made. So let's say I did a change last 9/22. So my most recent create date or snapshot is 9/23. Again, you will not trigger a snapshot if there are no changes made in CalPads. Okay. Normally, if you post an SCNR, you post those relevant data to CalPads, then that's when CalPads detect a change and puts you in queue for a snapshot. Okay. That's the expectation. Now, if you wonder how come I only have here 9/23, that's because we haven't made any changes to our test data since before this date. Okay. So I have total errors of 27. Okay. And then I also have here the required SELPA approval. Okay. So in production, you would be able to see the associated SELPA assigned to you. And then you also have your certification validations. This is where you will see your CERT errors, fatal errors, and certification warnings. Okay. At the minimum, resolving your certification errors will allow you to at least allow you to certify. Once you have 0 errors, you would and review reports, then you would be able to certify. However, if you really don't need to um, look at the warnings. However, um, I would really encourage you to look at warnings because this would also impact your reports. Okay, so we'll discuss that in a bit. Let's close that. And then at the bottom, you have your certification reports. This is what you will review after you've made corrections to CalPads and brought down your fatal errors to 0. Then that's the only time when you go and review these things. It doesn't make sense to just, on census day, October 6th, to just go straight to reports if you have 100 fatal errors. Okay, or because chances are there will be missing students on the reports. Why? Because those students are triggering fatal errors, and so fatal errors won't include the students on your reports. So once you have 0 fatal errors, wait for a new snapshot. Once you receive a new snapshot, let's say this is 9:30, then that's the time I would go here, look at my reports. So at the minimum, CalPads will allow you to certify by just looking at the aggregate reports. We have 10 here. Okay, each report serves its own purpose, so you have to review those. At the minimum, once you've looked at each of these 10, you'll have green check marks. This will activate a box here that you need to check that would say yes, you agree or affirm the accuracy of your data. Once you check that box, then you will have an LEA approved button here that you need to click on. Okay, at the minimum, you review this. However, it doesn't make sense to just review the counts. You have to look at supporting reports because you need to look at the list of students, right? So you also have to review these reports, and that's when you affirm the accuracy of your data. So you can run these reports, send it to the relevant data person who would affirm the veracity of this report. So if you have 1.17, then send it to the person who handles this data, who probably would affirm, okay, this is your foster youth count or those things. And then if you have your EL counts, then you could refer it to your EL person. So, or you could refer it to the different sites if you want to relegate the job or delegate the job per school site. Okay, and then at the bottom you have your snapshot history. Okay, this gives you a historical, obviously a historical list of the snapshots that was generated for you. Okay, in previous years, you know, this is just a way for us to see if you guys are working, right? And also if you've whittled down your errors. This is also a way for you to see if, oh, okay, I have a new snapshot, right? But this is a critical piece of functionality that you should not be taking for granted. Okay, so now that you have to coordinate with your SELPA, it is important that to know the revision ID of the data that you want your SELPA to look at. Okay, so so the revision ID, let's say if you're ready, you click on LEA Approved, and then on your SELPA side, they're ready to review your data. Then just to be proactive, I would send an email to my SELPA saying, okay, this is the version of, this is the revision ID that you need to review. Okay, so I will show you the SELPA side later where the revision ID can be looked at. Okay, so that's just a rundown of this. And so again, we have specific trainings in CalPads in the CSIS YouTube channel with regards to, where's that? Snapshot revision. Okay, you have your entire certification process. And then we also have the specifics on the snapshot revision because we always have questions about, okay, I made changes, how come I don't see it? Or I have changes, how come I don't see on this version? So all of that will be discussed in this in that self-recorded version if you want to go into the details of it. So why would I say that? Because there are different revisions that you might get with the activities that you do. So let's say if I made corrections, okay, I made corrections 923. I assume, okay, this is correct. I don't want to, let's just assume this is 0. This is correct. I don't want to I just want to make sure that this version is frozen. I could do that by checking on in review uncertified. Okay, this will freeze this. So whatever changes you make after clicking on this will not be will not impact this version, this revision ID. Now, if you made changes and a new snapshot was generated, you will now have two versions here: a in review uncertified and a revised uncertified. So the details of this, if you want to see and you know, look at the tutorial and this, look at this version here. Okay, hopefully Marshall could post that on the chat. Okay, so that's the certification. So let's now look at the errors. Okay, I now see I have 27. So these are the fatal errors I need to resolve. Okay, so we have here fatal errors that has to be resolved to clear your errors. So we have your CERT1, CERT4, CERT19, CERT40, CERT67, and all of those things. So how do I, you know, if I'm new to CalPads, I'm overwhelmed, right? Okay, I have 3 CERT1. I click on show. It would then give me the list of data that I need to look at. It says here CERT1, expected enrollment data missing for expected open school. Okay, what does that mean? If I'm new to CalPads, I would be overwhelmed, right? So here's a secret. We have the CERT error message here. Just click on that and it brings you to the actual error. So for data coordinators who have access to CalPads, you can just click on this. It gives you the CERT1 errors. For SPED persons who do not have access to CalPads and see CERT errors on their SED side, you could go to the CalPads user manual, go to help, and then click on troubleshooting. And you have the specific errors here. So you can download a spreadsheet if you prefer a spreadsheet version, or you can just look at the errors here. So let's go to Fall-1, CERT1. See, For you who do not have access to these links in CalPads, then you can go to this site. So click on CERT1. CERT1 is just stating that there are no students enrolled in an open school, meaning you have an active school in CalPads. However, CalPads did not detect any enrollment data. Okay. So how do you resolve this? Again, there are some suggested resolutions. So if you download the error list, the information would just be up to here, okay, without the active defects. Now, this is the benefit of going to the user manual or clicking on that link here. It brings you to this page where there might be active defects, and then there are additional suggested information that we as trainers put in that would benefit you. So here, the scenarios are you have an active school with students enrolled on or census day, but then you're getting a CERT1. So how do you resolve this? You submit your SCNR, submit your data to CalPads. You haven't submitted anything for that school, so hence you get a CERT1. So that's plain and simple. Now, scenario 2, you have an active school, but there are no enrollments on or before census day, or maybe the school is closed for the year, or I mean, the school is technically active, but there are no students enrolled this year. So to get around this, you have to submit a service ticket to CalPads telling us that this school is no longer, don't have enrollments this year, and you're not expecting enrollments throughout the year, but this is an active school. And so by doing that, we on the service desk will forward that ticket to CDE, who will then remove the school from the expected schools table. Okay, that's how to resolve scenario 2. Now, scenario 3 is, let's say if your school is really closed, it closed down at the end of summer, but CalPad still has it as open, and so we expect data coming from the school. Then you have to submit, go to this site, the Opus CDS website, and tell Opus CDS that this school should be closed. Okay. Once all of that application, once all of that process is has been accomplished, that's when they Opus will then transmit the data to the CalPad side, and the expected tables will then be updated to remove that school. So if you have, so this is the reason why I'm discussing this is that this is something that you must or could do now in CalPads, especially if you have scenario 2 or 3, which entails waiting, uh, waiting on the CalPad side to clear. Then I would once the snapshot is activated on census day and you see a CERT1, assess that CERT1 whether you have scenario 1, 2, or 3, and then do the appropriate action. Because if you just wait and until the initial deadline, chances are you might not make it. To be honest with you, you might not make it. You might need to you won't be able to certify if you have a CERT1. Okay. Okay, that's CERT1. Now let's go to the next one, CERT4. Okay. Well, CERT4 is stating a student has no ethnicity race data. So I click on show. So I'll just demo one more, CERT4 and CERT067, just to show you how you troubleshoot the certification errors that that you might get in CalPads. Okay, so who was that student I clicked on last meeting? No, this Carrie. I forgot about that. Oh, I should have remembered that student. Okay, let's see. Paulo Higiti. No, this is not the one. I'm going on the rundown of CC's persons here, like Wally Gator.
Yeah, Paulo.
Okay. Where's your San Francisco, Nate? I couldn't track that. My apologies.
Use the search on the left or the student Sam. I don't know the SSID, Kyron.
Yeah. Let's see. I hope I get this right. But never mind. So for CERT4 is stating that, let's just click on that. CERT4, it's stating that a student has no ethnicity and race data, meaning your SINF, you have a student enrolled in CalPADS, however, the demographic information is missing this piece of data, the ethnicity and race. Okay, so you have a suggested resolution. And the value of clicking on that link within the CERT page is sometimes we give you some what they call that term, some some uh, some bonus videos. So that because Nate has been doing resolution videos for a while and posting it on YouTube. So we incorporate that to the actual error. That way you can review it and follow along in resolving the error. Okay, so essentially CERT1 is just stating that, hey, you have a student and you don't have a race and ethnicity for the student. Okay. Okay, so let's just assume this is 2021. Okay, and the effective date is 2021 as well. I look at this enrollment and demographic, and I see there's a record here. However, the error stating this portion here is missing. Okay, Hispanic ethnicity indicator, race indicator, all of these things. This is an indicator that you did not submit a SINF for the student. Why is that so? Because normally when you just submit an SENR record for a student, CalPADS creates a shell demographic info based on the birth date, the birth country that is normally included on the batch file template for SNR, and it creates a demo record, a shell demo record. However, once you submit your SINF, all of this information will be populated too. So if you're doing batch file, that's good. However, if you're on the certification errors resolution now and you only have some minor students, let's say 2 3 triggering a CERT4, then I would suggest creating the record in online through online maintenance, especially if it's the deadline week or something. So add a new record here. You can add a new record, or you can just open that existing record that was already reported. Let's just do that. And populate the necessary information here. So you have your ethnicity, race. So I look at the cumulative file, or I look at the student's record on my SIS, and I see that the student is not Hispanic and the race code missing indicator is not missing. So I say no. Ethnicity missing indicator is no, because I know this person is not Hispanic, so I have an inkling of what the ethnicity is. And then I say, okay, this kid is Asian. So let's just say, they're Filipino. And then now you have race code 1 there, and then I validate, right? Nope, this will trigger an error because the parent guardian information is required. Okay, so you have to at least the parent highest level code, because this is required because it's part of the SED definition. So I say, okay, this student is not a high school has a parent who's not a high school graduate. So I validate. And validation successful, and I post the record. Now you'll notice that you have the information here, okay? You'll also notice that, hey, I created another record with no information. This happens when you put an effective end date on that record. So don't do that. When you update a record, do not put an effective end date, because CalPADS normally creates a new record on top of it, and lo and behold, you don't have a race code there. You'll have a perpetual CERT4. So let's just click on that record again, delete this record, validate, and post. I guess it's not working in testnet. So, okay, I meant this to show you that once the effective end date is cleared here, then this will automatically go away. Okay, so that's how it works in production. So I'm not sure what's going on in our test environment right now. So that's how to resolve a CERT4. So that's generally how to resolve or troubleshoot certification errors. Okay, go here, look at the CERT4, click on the message, look at the SSID, and look at the fields being validated. Sometimes, especially for CERT4, it's vague, so you probably have to um, look at the CFS. What are the required fields? Maybe that's where you could also look at how what the issue is. Okay, so these are information that this is a process that we normally do when we walk LEAs through the process of resolving errors, and this is normally what you should do too. Okay, so the last one was CERT067, and this is basically for students whose ELAS record for student not reported. So let's just look at that. Okay, CERT067, it's stating that you did not submit a SELA record for this student. Okay, so we go back to the SSID. I right click, open a new tab. That way I don't lose that page. And here was the student I was looking for earlier. So you have San Francisco. And so CERT067 is stating that I don't have a SELA data for the student. So I look here, I go to student English language acquisition, and true enough, this student does not have a SELA record. Okay. So it is important that if a student is grades KN to 12, that you need to submit a SELA record for this student. So submit a SELA record, identify the student if the student is EO, EO or TBD, or ADEL. So those are the three codes that you may use to identify a student. And that then, if it's a TBD, then that includes a student for initial LPAC testing. If it's EO, then you have an EO here. Okay, so that, and make sure that the effective start date or status date is on or before census day. Okay, let's just do that. Okay, September 30, status code EO, language English. Okay, so this will be included on the student will be recognized as EO. Now, if I put here, let's say October 7, even if I post this record, I validate and post, I will still continue to get a CERT067. Why? Because the cutoff date is census day. Okay, and a student must have a status date on or before census day. Okay, that's how to resolve a CERT067. And then again, the last one, CERT040, is the anomalies. So if you have a anomaly threshold of 2% or more, I saw mine is 3%, then I have to resolve this. How do I resolve anomalies? I go to online maintenance, anomalies management, and I look at the different sections like mid and CCE, because mid and CCE are the only anomalies that trigger in anomaly percentage. So I need to correct those. Okay, so there will be a training, I believe in October, for anomalies management, a live training. However, if you want to view it now, because there were no changes on anomalies, you can go to CalPADS intro and basic and look for CalPADS anomalies training. Okay. Okay, so So all of the errors resolved. I've reviewed all of the reports. I now check this box and I click on LEA Approved. And now I say, okay, I'm ready. So I'm proactive and I send my SELPA an email saying, hey, my Fall-1 reports are ready. Here is a revision ID you need to click on, you need to look at. So that's what I would do. I would send an email. Now, if I was the SELPA, let me switch to a SELPA of Dorado County. Just refresh, go to certification status, and this is how it would look like. Okay, so if it's LEA approved, then the status would show LEA approved here. And then look, you have the revision ID, right? So if I was the LEA and I tell them, okay, my report is ready, they look at the revision ID. Okay, it says, okay, this is the right one. And so they then go here to the reports, they review the reports. Sometimes, the revision ID is important because if we have different snapshot versions, like in review or the LEA is still in LEA approved, they didn't want, I mean, disapprove, or there are multiple versions on the certification status, then chances are they might not be able to see that page. And then also, by default, SELPAs will see a status of SELPA approved. So as a SELPA, I would switch this to LEA approved. So if by accident you just click on view report without switching this, you would, and then look at Black Oak Mine and view report, then chances are the revision ID might be different. So if I click on LEA approved, I click on view report, and then of course we're in test, it doesn't show it. But you get the point. Once you have the report, it would show a revision ID. By comparing that with the revision ID that you, as an LEA coordinator, sent to them for review, then they would know that they're looking at the right report. Okay, and that would minimize miscommunication. So once they've reviewed the report, then they agree with your data, then they can go ahead and certify. End of certification process. Okay, and so now that's the entire certification process. I apologize if I extended 7 minutes, and Nate will now discuss the actual details of each of the aggregate reports that you need to certify. Do we have any questions so far? Regarding the SELPA certification, are there particular data fields that are suggested to analyze for data discrepancies prior to certifying LAs? Nate will discuss that. It's more generally just looking at the counts for the different columns on the SELPA, on the SPED reports. And then Ricardo said, SINF does not do that all the time. I guess now you see what we go through. Yes, we know that. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, Nate. Take
Okay.
it away.